Imagine a business that charges a toll on almost every dollar you spend for the rest of your life. Not a tax from the government, a private toll. You don't see it on the receipt, you don't approve it, you don't negotiate it. It's just there. Every time you tap, swipe, or type your card number, money quietly gets siphoned away before the business owner even counts the day's sales. And here's the part that sounds fake until you realize it's your real life. The company collecting the toll didn't grow the coffee, didn't bake the bread, didn't build the store, didn't hire the cashier, didn't deliver the product, didn't take the inventory risk, and didn't deal with the angry customer when something goes wrong, but they still get paid first. Not sometimes, almost every time. That toll booth is run by two logos you've seen so often you stop noticing them: Visa and Mastercard. People call it a Visa monopoly, but the truth is scarier because it's not one company you can blame. It's a duopoly. Two companies sitting on the rails of global commerce, collecting a fee for being the default. And if you're a small business owner, they don't just feel powerful, they feel unavoidable. This is the story of the hidden 3%, the fee that quietly pushes your prices up, squeezes small businesses, and makes cash discount signs show up on counters like it's 1997 again. And the wild part is, Visa and Mastercard didn't win by making the best product for you. They won by making it impossible for the world to function without them. Let's start with the simple illusion we all live inside. Most people think when you pay with a card, the card company pays the store and you pay the card company later. That's the children's version of the story. The adult version is a whole machine with multiple hands in the jar, and the reason the jar keeps getting bigger is because the machine is designed to make pushing back feel dangerous. Here's what actually happens when you tap your card at a coffee shop. The store has a payment terminal connected to a payment processor, and behind that is an acquiring bank, basically the merchant's bank partner for card payments. Your card is issued by an issuing bank, like Chase or Bank of America, the bank that gave you the card and collects your interest if you carry a balance. Visa or MasterCard sits in the middle as the network. They don't usually lend you money, and they don't usually take your credit risk. Their job is to run the highway, route the payment, set the rules, and collect fees for the privilege of using the road. Then the bill hits the merchant. The merchant doesn't just pay a fee, they pay a stack. There's an interchange fee that largely goes to your issuing bank. There are network fees that go to Visa or MasterCard. There are processor and acquiring fees. There are sometimes extra charges for premium cards, rewards cards, business cards, and fancy corporate cards. There are fees for chargebacks, disputes, and compliance. And when you add it up, a typical credit card acceptance cost often lands somewhere around 2 to 3% of the sale and can be higher depending on the card type and the merchant's setup. Now, if you're a massive company like Walmart, you can negotiate hard. You can threaten to route payments differently. You can build your own leverage. But if you're a normal business, a restaurant, a salon, a repair shop, a small online store, you don't negotiate with Visa and MasterCard the way you negotiate rent. You don't call them up and say, hey, can we do 1% instead? You get what you get. And if you don't like it, your options are basically take cash only and lose customers, or accept the toll and keep moving. That's the core of the power. The fee isn't high because the technology is expensive. The fee is high because refusal is expensive. Think about what a small business is dealing with. Their profit margin might be 5% on a great day. Sometimes it's lower. In restaurants, it can be brutal. So when card acceptance costs you roughly 2 to 3%, you're not paying a small fee. You're handing over a massive chunk of the profit you're fighting for, and you're doing it for the privilege of taking the most common form of payment in modern life. This is why the 3% matters. Not because 3% sounds big to the average shopper. 3% feels like nothing until you realize it's coming out of the merchant's survival margin, not out of a magical pile of extra money. Now zoom out. Why are Visa and MasterCard so untouchable? Because they don't just run a service, they run a network effect that feeds on itself. A card network becomes valuable when everyone accepts it. Everyone accepts it when everyone carries it. Everyone carries it when rewards are attractive. Rewards are attractive when banks fund them using interchange fees. Merchants pay interchange fees because they can't afford to refuse the cards. And customers don't want to hear cash only because it feels like stepping back in time. It's a loop, and once a loop becomes the default, it stops feeling like a choice. This is where the bullying part comes in, because the duopoly doesn't need to threaten you with a baseball bat. It threatens you with the quiet reality of commerce. If you don't accept the cards, customers leave. If customers leave, you die, so you comply. And the system is built so that even when merchants try to fight back, the fight feels rigged. Let's talk about steering. In a fair market, if one payment method costs the merchant more, the merchant should be able to encourage the cheaper option. Hey, cash is preferred. Hey, debit is cheaper. Hey, use this network instead. But for years, network rules and the culture around card payments made that hard. Even today, many merchants are terrified of doing anything that might trigger penalties, disputes, or customer blowback. And customers have been trained to feel offended when a business tries to pass along card costs, even though those costs were always there. So merchants do what they've done for decades. They bake the fee into the price, and that's the hidden tax. If you pay cash, you still pay the higher price. If you use a card, you also pay the higher price. The whole store becomes a world where prices are inflated to cover the toll booth. And that's why card fees aren't just a merchant problem, they become an everybody problem. Here's the ugly twist. Rewards programs feel like free money to consumers. 2% back, points, miles, fancy cards, airport lounges, the feeling of winning. But rewards aren't magic. They're funded. A large part of that funding comes from interchange fees that merchants pay, which then get passed to customers in higher prices, which means the free rewards are often a reshuffling of money through a system that skims off the top. So who wins the most? People who spend more, travel more, and qualify for premium cards. Who loses the most? People who spend a bigger share of their income on basics, and people who pay cash or use debit without rewards. It becomes a quiet transfer from the bottom to the top disguised as points. And Visa and Mastercard are perfectly positioned in the middle because they get paid either way. More spending means more tolls. Higher prices mean more tolls. Reward-heavy premium cards mean more tolls. Even inflation can become their friend, because if prices rise, the same percentage fee becomes a bigger dollar fee. This is why the model is so powerful. It doesn't just scale with economic growth, it scales with the cost of living. Now let's talk about what small businesses actually experience on the ground, because this is where the story turns from economics into something personal. If you run a small business, card fees aren't one clean line item. They are chaos. One month your effective rate is 2.4%. Next month it's 3.1%. Then you get hit with chargebacks. Then your processor says you need new compliance paperwork. Then you get a surprise fee because a customer used a premium rewards card. Then you get a non-qualified rate because a transaction was keyed in instead of tapped. Then you get told your business is higher risk, so reserves are held back. Then you're staring at a statement that looks like it was designed to make you give up and just pay. And that confusion isn't an accident. Complexity is a business strategy. If it's hard to understand, it's hard to fight. That's why you see small businesses putting up signs that feel almost guilty. We charge 3% for credit cards. Cash discount available. Debit preferred. They're not doing that because they're greedy. They're doing that because the system is squeezing them and they're trying not to drown. But here's what the duopoly does next. It turns the customer against the merchant. Because the moment you see that sign, many customers think, wow, this business is nickel and diming me. Not, wow, the payments industry is taxing this transaction. That's the brilliance of the model. The toll collector is invisible. The store owner is standing right there. Now add one more layer. The small business can't simply switch to a cheaper card company because Visa and Mastercard aren't just brands. They're rails. Most of the cards in your wallet run on these rails. Even if you never think about it, your daily life is wired into them. This is why the word duopoly matters. Competition is supposed to discipline pricing, but when two networks dominate acceptance and the banking ecosystem is built around them, competition becomes a performance. Sure, there are other networks. Sure, there are alternatives. But the practical reality for a small merchant is refusing Visa and Mastercard is like refusing electricity. You can do it, technically, you just won't like your sales afterward. So why hasn't this been crushed by regulation? Because the system is politically tricky. Interchange fees are a river of money. Banks love it. Rewards cards are popular with voters. The networks have deep influence. And the whole thing is wrapped in enough complexity that most people don't know who to blame. But cracks have formed before. The biggest example is debit. In the US, regulators capped certain debit interchange fees for large banks years ago. That didn't kill Visa and Mastercard, but it proved the concept. Fees on essential payment rails can be regulated when lawmakers decide the system is too abusive. Credit, though, is the big prize. Credit is where the fee burden is often heavier and where rewards become a political shield. Because if you mess with credit interchange, you'll hear the same warning on repeat. Rewards will disappear. Banks will raise other fees. Consumers will lose benefits. Maybe some of that happens. But notice how the threat is always the same structure. If we stop the toll, someone else will have to pay. That's the most honest sentence in this entire business. The toll money isn't optional. Someone is funding it. Right now, that someone is basically the entire retail economy baked into prices. So when people ask, why is everything so expensive? The payment toll is not the only reason, but it is a real reason. It is a constant friction on commerce that scales with every purchase. Now here's the part that makes this story perfect for market majors. Because it's not just a faceless economic machine, it's a David versus Goliath story happening every day. Picture a local restaurant. They're dealing with rising food costs, rising rent, rising wages, delivery apps taking a cut, customers being price sensitive, and online reviews that can destroy them in a weekend. They finally stabilize, and then payments take another bite out of every sale, quietly, reliably, forever. And if they try to push back by adding a card fee, customers get mad. If they raise menu prices to hide it, customers still get mad. If they go cash only, sales drop. That's not a free market, that's a trap. And Visa and Mastercard didn't build that trap by doing anything illegal in a cartoonish way. They built it by becoming infrastructure. By the time you're infrastructure, you don't need to threaten people. The world threatens them for you. So what's the end game here? Are Visa and Mastercard invincible? Not invincible, but extremely resilient. Because even the things that look like threats often end up feeding the machine. Mobile wallets? Most mobile wallet transactions still route through the same card networks. Tap to pay feels modern, but under the hood it's usually still the same rails. E-commerce growth? That's more card volume. Subscription everything? That's more card volume. Rising prices? That's larger fees on the same percentage. Global growth? More volume. Even financial innovation often becomes a new on-ramp into the toll road. But there are real pressure points. One is merchants organizing and fighting through lawsuits and legislation. Another is a push to force routing competition, meaning merchants could choose cheaper networks rather than being locked into the default. Another is alternative payment rails, real-time bank transfers, new digital wallet models, and systems that bypass traditional card interchange. The problem is, alternatives have to beat cards on convenience. Not by a little, by a lot, because the card duopoly is already installed in your muscle memory. You don't just compete with price, you compete with habit. This is why adoptions of alternatives are slow. The best technology in the world doesn't win if it makes the customer do extra steps. And Visa and Mastercard understand that better than anyone, because their entire empire is built on making payment feel frictionless while making the fee feel invisible. So what should you take away from this? First, that 3% is not a small business management issue. It's a structural toll that shapes prices across the entire economy. Second, the free rewards story is not free. It's funded through a system that pushes costs into the prices everyone pays, and the biggest winners tend to be people with premium cards and high spending. Third, Visa and Mastercard are not powerful because they are beloved. They are powerful because they are default. And when a company becomes the default, it becomes a tax. And finally, if you ever wondered why small businesses sound stressed, why they look like they're constantly one bad month away from closing, why they seem irritated when you ask for a split payment or a manual entry, why they beg you to use debit, why they put up a 3% fee sign and brace for the argument, this is a big part of the reason. They're not fighting you, they're fighting the toll booth. So the next time you tap your card and everything feels instant and clean, remember what actually happened. A little river of money just moved away from the business you're standing in toward an invisible system that gets paid simply because it sits in the middle. That's the Visa and Mastercard duopoly, the most profitable toll road on earth. And if you want the darkest punchline of all, it's this. You can boycott a fast food chain, you can quit an app, you can avoid a brand. But avoiding the payment rails that run the modern economy, that's not a consumer choice. That's a lifestyle change, which is exactly why the toll keeps going up. If you've noticed more cash discount signs lately, or you've run a business and watched card fees eat your profit alive, tell me in the comments.